Hello, my name is Andrew Thake. I'm from Minds and Money, and I'd just like to welcome you to our keynote panel discussion, which is opportunities in the Michipicoten Belt. This was sponsored by IBK Capital, and it gives me a great pleasure to go and introduce Michael White, President and Chief Executive Officer of IB Capital, to introduce this session. The floor is yours, Michael.
Thanks a lot, Andrew, and thanks everyone at Minds and Money for giving us the opportunity to have this panel today. It's going to be a great discussion. It's the topic is gold and gold in the Michipicoten Belt in Ontario, Canada. It's a prolific belt. It contains a lot of gold. There are some producers on the belt, and we have one of them here today. And it's going to be the effort of me as moderator to make sure that everybody out in the audience today truly understands the opportunities that exist on this belt, both for exploration and development, but also in terms of production and increase in production over time. We have some great panelists with us here today. We've got Scott Parsons. He's the Vice President Exploration at Alamos Gold. They're our producer on the panel today. We've also got Richard Murphy, President and CEO of Manitou Gold. He's exploring with a nice budget on the belt for gold. We have Quentin Yarie, President and CEO and Director of Red Pine Exploration. Red Pine is a little bit further advanced in terms of exploration on their deposit, the Saluga, on the Michipicoten Belt for gold. And they recently consolidated 100% of that into Red Pine. So we're looking forward to hearing from Quentin. And then we also have Jose Vizquerra, and he's the President and CEO of O3, O3 Mining, which is part of the Osisko family of companies, and they recently took a position in Manitou Gold, and they're excited for the opportunities for gold discovery on this belt as well. So we're going to kick it off with Scott Parsons. I'll turn the floor over to him. He's with Alamos, as I mentioned, and he'll go through Alamos, their activities on the belt, and then we'll move down the line to Richard, Quentin, and Jose. Scott, it's all yours.
Thanks for the introduction, Mike, and thank you to Minds and Money and IBK Capital for sponsoring this session on the Michipicoten Greenstone Belt. Just starting with a brief overview of Alamos Gold, we're a growing, diversified intermediate gold producer. We're expecting to produce approximately 500,000 ounces of gold in 2021, which is up 15% from 2020. With our expansion underway at Island Gold, which I'll talk about shortly, and our potential development of our Lynn Lake project in Manitoba, we see production growing to about 750,000 ounces a year by 2025. In terms of exploration and how Alamos entered the Michipicoten Greenstone Belt, we acquired the Island Gold Mine, which you can see in my background picture behind me, through the acquisition of Richmont Mines in 2017. So from the date of acquisition to year-end 2020, we've invested significantly in exploration, $45 million Canadian over that period at Island. And the results have been significant. We've added 3 million ounces of reserves and resources, net of the 500,000 ounces of mining depletion. Our discovery costs have averaged $11 an ounce for the last 3 years. So Island Gold deposit's grown from 1.8 million ounces of reserves and resources when we acquired it to 4.7 million ounces at the year end 2020. And we see lots of opportunity for the deposit to continue to grow through exploration. 2021, we're spending our largest exploration budget to date, $25 million Canadian. 20 million of that is ongoing mine exploration, and 5 million will be allocated to regional exploration, which is extremely exciting. From an operation perspective, it's not only our resource and reserves that have grown over the period, our operations have grown. We completed a phase 1 expansion in 2018 to 1,100 tons per day, and then a phase 2 expansion in 2019 to 1,200 tons per day. So this has driven production higher over the last several years to 140,000 ounces in 2020. Combined with lower costs, Island generated a record $101 million of free cash flow last year. There's more growth to come. As we talked about and released last July, we're working on a phase 3 expansion project of the operation, which will take it to 2,000 tons per day, and it includes installation of a shaft to an initial depth of 1,400 meters. By 2025, this expansion will increase production by about 70% to 240,000 ounces a year on average, with industry low all-in sustaining costs of $534 an ounce. At the current gold prices, Island will largely self-finance its expansion, and once it's completed in 2025, the operation of a long mine life ahead of it, generating free cash flow of more than $200 million per year. In 2020, we added 900,000 ounces of inferred resources at almost 19 grams per ton. And the majority of these inferred resources are in proximity to our planned shaft in Island East. We're continuing to drill outside of those new inferred resources at depth. Now, just last week, we announced the best drill hole intersection to date from Island, which was surface directional drill hole MH2508, returning 71 grams or 39 cut over 21 meters true width. This is notable. It's the best drill hole ever drilled at Island. So out of a total of 1.3 million meters of drilling in 7,000 holes dating back to the 1930s, the hole we released last week was the best drill hole in terms of gram meters out of the entire history of drilling on the property. So it highlights not only the exploration potential of Island Gold, but also across the entire Michipicoten Belt. There's opportunities for new discoveries, and obviously this style of mineralization is likely to occur elsewhere on the belt. So these additions continue to represent upside for the Phase 3 expansion project. With ongoing exploration success and the deposit open laterally and at depth, we see potential for this to continue growing as backed by our significant exploration investment again this year in 2021. So on the regional exploration front, in December 2020, we acquired Trillium Mining, which is basically a large land package to the east of Island Gold. We added 5,400 hectares along strike from Island Gold deposit. So this expanded our land position in the Michipicoten Greenstone Belt to 15,000 hectares. And it includes significant exploration potential, both in proximity to our existing high-grade reserves and resources at Island and regionally across the segment of the belt. Notably, based on our current geological interpretation of the E1E structure, which is hosting the Island Gold deposit, there's strong potential for this structure to extend on the newly acquired ground, which we're excited about consolidating and continuing to test. Not only does it have an impact, there's a positive upside on mine exploration, in terms of regional exploration, it provides significant potential for additional discoveries across what's now an additional 10 kilometers of strike extent within the Goudreau Lake Deformation Zone, which in this part of the Michipicoten Greenstone Belt is a primary control in gold mineralization. So we combine the Trillium land package with our pre-existing Alamos land package, and now we have 17 kilometers of this structure that we're exploring. This includes Island Gold, the Kremsar deposit, 2 past producing mines, including Klein and Edwards, as well as several showings across the property, including Marks and Vega. What this large land package allows us to do now, instead of focusing in on specific targets and jumping right to drilling, it allows for us to step back and apply a systematic approach, so a district scale approach to exploration. We can target based on greenstone belt scale structural and stratigraphic controls and gold mineralization. And this is a significant opportunity for discovery. We've also increased our exposure to exploration projects in the belt through strategic investments in both Red Pine Exploration and Manitou Gold. With that, I'll now pass the discussion over to Richard Murphy, President and CEO of Manitou Gold.
All right, thank you very much, Scott. So from Manitou Gold's perspective, we became interested in the Goudreau-Lacalche area and this part of the Michipicoten Greenstone Belt going back to late 2016. Aspirationally, I sort of set my sights on looking for opportunities in the belt. I was watching very closely at the time a company called Richmont Mines, which was the predecessor owner to the Island Gold Mine, had come up with a strategy, an exploration strategy to start exploring the Island Gold Mine property at depth below what they'd been exploring, basically between surface and 500 meters, and they began to look down at 500 meters and plus a bit deeper. And they came up with tremendous success. And I recognized that there may be opportunities in the belt. We started off by doing pretty exhaustive title searching, just looking for any parcels of land that may be open, and establishing the other landowners in the camp. There were several parcels owned by other mineral exploration groups that didn't necessarily have it at the top of the priority list. So we made our first small acquisition. It was a parcel of patented lands late in 2017. That sort of kicked things off. And over the subsequent years, we've done an additional 7 property deals. Just this morning, we announced the final vesting on 2 of the options, which comprise a very large part of our 100% owned property now. So we're fully vested, 100% owners. There's no back-end rights, partnerships, etc. We own, now a consolidated 350 square kilometers covering basically the eastern part of the Michipicoten, and we're sort of bookended in between Alamos's Island Gold Mine on our west side, and on our east side by the past producing Renabi mine, which is owned by Barrick. And the Renabi mine was also a significant gold producer. It produced well over 1 million ounces of gold ending in 1991. So what we've put together, I mentioned it's 350 square kilometers of area. It covers about 40 kilometers strike length, several underexplored deformation zones, but we really focused in the last, let's say, 3/4 on the Baltimore deformation zone. So in the area where Alamos, their neighbors to the west are, mining, developing, exploring, is a very large crustal scale deformation zone known as by Alamos as a Goudreau Lake deformation zone. We refer to it as the Goudreau-Lacache deformation zone. It extends for a good 20 kilometers east-west, sort of an arcuate shaped corridor of deformation with associated gold deposits within it. That part of the Goudreau-Lacache is seen historically well over 1 million ounces of, 1 million meters of exploration drilling for gold. And what we've recognized on the central and eastern part of the Manitou property is a very close analog to the Goudreau-Lacache deformation zone, known as the Baltimore deformation zone. It extends for 18 kilometers in length within our property package. We think it's got similar sort of crustal scale signature. It's nominally 3 kilometers east-west, so that's a very big playground to be exploring in, 18 kilometers by 3. And we've just recently prioritized the westernmost 10 kilometers of that 18 kilometer zone, and we're very, very excited to be completing the targeting work in the coming weeks, both geophysics. So we're doing very detailed 50-meter space ground mag, deep penetrating IP surveys, soil geochem, and a geological compilation of that whole 10 by 3 kilometer, 30 square kilometer corridor. So those targets are taking shape very, very nicely. We've got a drill on the property, and our plan is within approximately 3 to 4 weeks to be basically selecting the highest priority of these targets. And we'll have a ranking system that will kind of put them all through a matrix and come up with the best targets to drill first. So we're very optimistic that in the second half of this current year, we'll be in a position to make new discovery on a part of this belt that basically is a very close analog to the Goudreau-Lacache, but it's got a real paucity of historic drilling. We're pretty well financed for this work. We want to drill an additional 18,000 meters in this current year. We've got about 4.5 million in cash. So all this work is fully funded, and I look forward to being able to deliver results on this on an ongoing basis through the second half of the current year. And with that, I'll turn it over to Quentin.
Sorry, just Richard, sorry to change things up here last minute, and Quentin, apologies. But Jose's, we started late, and so Jose has another call that he has to jump to. So I really want to get his words in first. Jose, if you're good to go, I'll turn the floor over to you. Jose's the president and CEO of O3 Mining. Jose.
Mike, thank you very much for having us here, and thank you everyone for joining us. And for us, as a junior mining company that believes in sharing the risk, it is a real privilege to be part of the Manitou Gold story. We certainly believe in the idea of focusing ourselves into very large areas, district areas with a lot of gold potential if we see the history of Archean gold deposits, it was one of the areas where most of the gold has been found. And we must know that in Canada, there are areas such as Red Lake, such as Val-d'Or or Timmins, and certainly such as this particular area that we have in here on the Gordo or in the Michipicoten Belt, where we have the opportunity of finding something very, very large. And we do believe in the idea of finding elephants in a terrain of elephants. Certainly what Island Gold has been able to discover in the area, it's amazing. I mean, the job that Alamos Gold has been able to identify there and the knowledge that now exists in the area is incredible. And that brings a lot of value to this area that was forgotten since the times of Barrick with Bernabe. So for us, we tend to believe in the idea of betting for very strong teams and areas that are district in scale with a huge geological potential. And I want to leave the message to say that these kind of deposits do not appear as a single story. We have seen that before in other areas. We see areas like, Red Lake when it was Goldcorp and the Campbell mine being on the side, but being part of at the time of Barrick, and subsequently they joined it with Campbell and Red Lake. The same thing appears in the area of Val-d'Or when you see mines besides another one. This will not be the exception. We certainly believe that there is an enormous potential here to find more things. I am sure that this is not aleatory. The fact that you have Red Pine and you have Manitou and you have Alamos, and Alamos just bought another area that was very prospective, and I am convinced that this greenstone belt will provide us with a lot of opportunities, and more important, will create a lot of wealth for the people around, for the First Nations around, for our shareholders and stakeholders. No.
Thank you, Jose, and thanks for sticking in here. I know you have to run. So when the audience sees Jose drop away, it's because he has to, not because he wanted to. But anyway, thank you so much, Quentin. It's over to you now to speak about your experience on this greenstone belt and the Red Pine story. You've done a lot of work, a lot of development, a lot of drilling, and you just consolidated it recently. So you got a lot of news. The floor is yours, Quentin.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, and thanks, Scott and Richard and Jose. I mean, this is a great story. Obviously, I believe in the belt. Like Richard, we got involved in this belt pre-Alamos. Red Pine was looking for a project at the time, and we came across what we referred to as the Wawa Gold Project. The project was in a option agreement between two companies, one called Augustine and the other called Citabar. They were in risk of losing their option agreement, so we came in and we were able to get 30% of the project. We subsequently purchased Augustine in an all-share transaction, and then went about putting in two resources together, which we'll talk about a bit. And the goal was to get 100% of ownership of the project into Red Pine, and that took some time and it took some effort. However, we were successful in finally doing that this year in a part and partial transaction. We raised $20 million. 11.2 of that went to Citabar, which represented effectively the read-through value of the share price at the time, and they ended up with a 1.5% NSR, which we can buy 1% back for 1.5%. So I think it was a good transaction for the shareholders of Red Pine in that it was accretive. And it was a good transaction for our partner as well. They got some significant cash and they can invest that where they see like. Along with that, we raised $5 million in flow through, and that's currently what we're using for drilling on the property. We currently have 2 drills on site. We're looking to add a third in the next 2 weeks. We've just begun drilling. As I mentioned, we closed this financing less than 3 months ago, so it took us a while to hit the ground running with our drills, but those are happily turning at the moment. our big plan at the moment is sort of two-pronged. We're looking, as Mike mentioned, we do have a resource. We have two on the property. One we refer to as the Saluga, and the other is the Minto Mine South. The Saluga resource is the largest resource on the property. It is approximately 600,000 ounces, just over 5 grams per ton. It exists from surface to about 300 meters in depth. And it's a little different than what we see in the Michipicoten Greenstone Belt in that it has a thickness component to it that's a little different. It averages just over 10 meters thick. So when we look at a metal factor, it ends up being quite close to, I'll be honest, because some of Alamos's numbers, in some cases, we end up with about 2,000 ounces per vertical meter through most of that deposit. And that's what makes it exciting. It's also the fact that there's been no exploration beneath 300 meters on that property as well. And the other deposit is similar to some of the past producers that were on this property. It's narrow, high grade, sort of a quartz tourmaline vein. It's currently at 100,000 ounces, just over 7 grams per ton. It's a little different. One of the reasons we got involved in this project is there are at least 8 past producers on our land position, and we have approximately 6 kilometers in strike length by 2 kilometers in width. So we have a lot of blue sky to look at. But in the coming months, our focus is, again, to prove that the Saluga resource, can be expanded to depth. That's sort of the low-hanging fruit, in my opinion. And we will use one other drill sort of in true greenfield exploration, exploring one of or two of the other past producing high-grade mines on the property. And that'll be our focus moving forward. We do have cash in the bank. As I mentioned, we raised the money. We have just over 4.3 million slated right now for exploration this year. With the financing that we did, we do have some warrants that are coming due in December that we expect to get exercised. Our good partner Alamos holds most of those, and their exercise price is approximately 50 cents. So at our current trading value, we expect most of those to get exercised and see an influx of cash of approximately $5 million. So again, we feel we are well financed with some visibility for exploration well into 2022. I'd like to point out something that Jose mentioned. The technical teams here, including Scott and Richard and ourselves, we do talk and we work a lot together. And I think we control most of this belt. If you want to be part of this system, and as Jose has pointed out, there are going to be more discoveries here. There are more discoveries happening here all the time. And I think the fact that we all work together and we function as a team in this area bodes very well for us in the coming months. All right, Mike.
Yeah, thanks. And just if actually following on that, it's a question that came in to Richard, but I think it applies to everybody here. And Quentin, I'd like you to begin, because in addition to consolidating your project 100%, your company and the predecessor Augustine did a lot of land consolidation as well, and staking, and so if each one of you, Scott and Quentin, Richard, could answer this, that'd be great. How did you consolidate these lands when they were so fragmented before? How did you accomplish that in such because it just seems to be happening lately, the last year? But anyway, we'll start with you, Quentin.
Well, I don't think ours happened in the last year, but it's been happening over the last year. As I mentioned, there's at least 8 past producing mines on our property, and those were all held individually. Those saw production from the 1880s through to the 1980s, actually, different series and different stops and starts during time. The predecessor to Red Pine that was on the project, one of the things was that they did very well was consolidate all that ownership, and those were fee simple lands or patented claims, and they were able to purchase them all and put together a large land package for us. So we're just over 6,700 hectares, I guess. But yeah, it's difficult. It's a challenge for sure, and yeah, you got to be aware of what's going on and what direction you want to go. And I know Richard's been very successful at it, and so obviously so is Scott with the purchase that they recently did last year.
Yeah, Scott, if we could turn it over to you, just give us just some of the highlights of your land acquisition. and maybe speak to, because you are the center of this in terms of your ownership in Manitou and your ownership in Red Pine and all the lands that you have. Speak to what Quentin mentioned, and that is the collaboration that's going on. Because I mean, it's just mining. You go back, even 20 years, and nobody spoke to their neighbor. It was always about keeping the information guarded. And Rob McEwen was always one that was pointed to in terms of he broke that mold. He shared his information. He even gave out prize money to folks that could better figure out his land. Is this making a difference? Is the consolidation of this belt mainly around the three of you and the sharing of information, is that making a big difference?
I think it's going to make a critical difference. And I guess first I'll speak to the first part of the question, in terms of the consolidation of the Alamos land package. And that's been something that's occurred over time. You look back 100 years, it was mineral tenure that was held by a number of different individual prospectors or groups, dating back on our property to 1898. And they're all focused around the showings that are obvious, the quartz veins you walk up to, and not a lot of work done inside of that, because there is some glacial cover, a lot of glacial cover throughout the area that historically hasn't been explored underneath. So that's an opportunity. But you look at the consolidation up from 1898 through the 30s, and then exploration kind of waned off a bit in the 30s to 70s, and then the real consolidation started happening for our land package from 1980 through to present day, essentially, where companies that were kind of taking more of a district scale approach slowly started consolidating the land over decades to what is our Island Gold land package. With the Trillium acquisition, that was something that we knew we wanted. We knew, based on our geologic understanding of Island Gold, that our mineralization likely down plunge at depth continues across that the land tenure boundary. We wanted to remove that risk, so it was an opportunity for us to acquire that land package and now consolidate that portion of the Michipicoten Belt. I guess going on to the collaboration side of it, I think it's absolutely critical. I mean, Island Gold is not going to be the only style of deposit that exists on the belt. There's going to be multiple styles of mineralization as in any greenstone belt. And one thing that we really, really enjoy doing between Manitou, Red Pine, and our team is sharing ideas. And we all benefit from it. We can share our ideas about the understanding of mineralization on Island Gold and some of our other targets, and then vice versa from Manitou and Red Pine. We're learning from them based on the work that they're doing. And I think that's really, the way that you're going to have success in that belt is leveraging all that experience, all those eyes that are on the ground, looking at drill core, looking at different showings, piecing it all together, and that'll unlock the potential for sure of the belt.
Excellent, Richard. You wanna add a little bit to that, and
sure.
and Jose, feel free to chime in as well, because you've entered into this belt, and you listed those reasons why, and you highlighted it so well. But yeah, feel free to say a few words as well. But Richard, over to you.
Yeah. Well, as Scott alluded to, this belt has been explored since the late 1800s. There was a real heyday of prospecting, claim staking, and actually surveying, bringing claims to patent back in the 20s and 30s. And that led to an extremely fragmented fabric of land tenure across the whole Goudreau-Lacalche area. And we didn't go and put those individual parcels together. We basically followed in the footsteps of several different groups that did it partially. One of the big consolidators out there is a prospector by the name of Mike Tremblay, who works very closely with us on a daily basis. Mike did a great job of consolidating lands, optioning them out to various companies, many of which we actually purchased are now contiguous block from. Interesting to note, the Kremzar zone on the Island Gold Mine property is literally behind the company's core shack. Was prospected by Mr. Kremzar back in the day. He's the grandfather of George Burns, the CEO at Eldorado Gold. So it's a very, very small mining family here. In terms of our consolidation, the various deals we did, some of them were incredibly straightforward, dealing with a family trust in one case, or some of the juniors that we dealt with, consortium of prospectors, and some of it we had to get we had to use some imaginative trickery to displace other interested parties. But I think at the end of the day, now we're pretty entrenched in our position as our neighbors on this panel, and yeah, we enjoy good dialogue with all the other parties involved here.
Excellent. And Jose, do you have anything to add on collaboration?
Yeah, I think one thing that it is very important to say is that, these Greenstone Belt deposits, which, Canada is one of the fortunate places to have this style of mineralization. They are very different from many other places in the world, and that's why it makes it so unique, and we are so much interested in these areas. If we compare to what depth these sort of deposits extends, they tend to extend for kilometers. They also tend to be located in areas that has a cortical structure, so very, 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 very thick, kind of fault in the center, or a deformed zone, which is very, very, very strong. And that's what we have in here. Again, I don't believe that this is an area where we're going to have only one or two deposits, but I think this is just a matter of doing more exploration, and more of this will come out. Again, we have seen it in Red Lake. People thought that Red Lake, no one could find anything else after Red Lake and Campbell, and yet you have after that a couple other deposits that has been found, including right now what's the name of these guys that just found a very, very large deposit. I just forget about that, but the Great Bear. So the Great Bear came into the story out of the WAC. So I certainly believe that the potential to find more things here, it's incredible. It has the size, it has all the geological features, it has the technical teams, and to what Scott and Richard and Quentin were alluding, I mean, having the bright minds thinking all together makes something different, and more important for the benefit of Quentin and Richard. Now they also have the money, which, in many of the projects, that is the issue, where you have very little amount of money. So from $1 million to $1 million, you're not going to make a very large discovery. But when you have, a prudent amount of money that can be with a plan that can be executed by talented professionals, then you will be successful. And I am very sure that what we will see in this particular district will be a lot of wealth being created. There is already mineralization in the area with Alan Gold, with Renavi, with Red Pine, and what Manitou is finding. And I certainly believe that that what we can see in this area is it's very important. I mean, Magino is there as well with a couple million ounces as well. So if we think about this area, there is, arguably already 10 million ounces from a very broad idea. So I definitely believe that if someone is looking for an area to deploy capital in any of the companies that they want, either someone which is more advanced and where there is production such as Alamos, or in more advanced exploration, not in production such as Manitou or Red Pine, this is an area where people should definitely consider making investments, because this is high risk, high reward. But I do believe that we have all the ingredients to find massive deposits in the area.
Well, that's a very, very good point. I like it when you compare it to Red Lake and Timmins and Miranda. And along those lines, you're right. I think in Timmins' case, it's 25 plus million ounces have been produced. And anyway, these are big greenstone belts with a lot of gold potential, and a lot of that's at depth. I'm just going through some of the questions here. One of them is for you, Scott, along this idea of exploration and continuing to explore the belt. You're finding success at depth, not just along strike. Can you speak to some of your directional drilling methods, some of these ways that you can drill deep and be very targeted, and how's that working out for you? Maybe you can just give us a bit of
Yeah, so this is our sixth year of directional drilling from surface, and it started in 2015, which was before my time with Richmont, actually. And At the time, all the development was in the footwall of the deposit, and they were successful in drilling it from underground down to about 500, 550 meters. And as the ore body started to dip further to the south, it was challenging to get the core angles to be able to drill at depth with the footwall underground development. So what they came up with at the time, and this was fairly innovative in the gold sector, was moving out the surface with surface drills in the hanging wall, coming back at it at optimal drill angles, using surface directional drilling, which in this case is a Devico tool. And what that allowed us to do, you basically drill a pilot hole, and then you're able to branch, some cases 12, 13 times off the pilot hole at 800-900 meters down hole. So you're avoiding drilling that first 900 meters every time for every hole. And what it also allows us to do is be able to steer that drill hole to almost exactly to where we want it within the targeted mineralized zone. And that's important because we're trying to define a resource at depth, and we require certain drill spacing to be able to do that. If you're trying to drill, now we're drilling at 1,600 meters vertical from surface. If you're trying to drill with conventional drilling, it'd be next to impossible to hit your target with the accuracy that we need, but we're able to hit it within a 10-meter accuracy. We've drilled 240 surface directional holes now, about 200,000 meters of drilling. And most of that success we've had with the addition of 3 million ounces has come from the surface directional drilling. So huge opportunity. It also limits our footprint at surface. I mean, instead of having 13 different drill collars or drill pads at surface for the same kind of target horizon within the ore body, we're able to set up in one pad with that one pilot hole and stay there for 6 months, 12 months, and just that's our setup, and we drill off of that, and we're able to get really wide spacing across or wide coverage, across a tight spacing across the horizon. So it's that's been a game changer for Island Gold, is the ability to drill from surface, and we've now taken that. We've moved that technology underground. So this is the second year now we've started underground directional drilling. So using the same technology, but from underground, which will allow us to continue to be cost effective and time effective in terms of how many drill intersections we're getting in a short period of time, moving that to underground with shorter holes.
And so you've gone from, what was it, just a million and a half ounces to 4 million? Is that how you've? Yeah,
when year-end 2017, when Alamos acquired Richmont Mines, the reserve and resource is 1.8 million ounces, and we've grown that to 4.7 million ounces, and that's net of 500,000 ounces that we've mined during that period.
That's a massive move, and that all leads to production. You mentioned in your presentation, which should net out about 200 million of free cash flow per year.
Yeah, once the phase 3 expansion is fully commissioned in 2025, current gold price is 200 million of free cash flow a year, and exploration continues. We'll continue drilling at depth and following these ore shoots down plunge, and there's an opportunity obviously closer to surface and along strike that we're looking forward to getting started on.
And how many ounces of production does that represent?
In terms of
the expanded program.
Off the top of my head, I believe in terms of the phase 3 expansion with the 240,000 ounces a year, I believe that's over extended 13 to 14 year mine life. So a lot of ounces there. Yeah.
Significant, very significant. And I'm saying this because I think everybody needs to understand, as Jose was pointing out, that these are not small mines, right? These are ore bodies, I should say. And the mines that will be developed around them will not be small mines. We have a question that came in from the audience for
Mike. And if I may interrupt, one thing that we should consider here is also different mining methods. For now, we have seen kind of the typical underground, 4 grams, but we're not even including here new discoveries that could be lesser grade and could end up being open pit. That was part of the history of Canadian Malartic, which is part of the group that I'm part of. For many years, they said that mine was never going to be a mine, that it was never going to be able to be built. And yet, right now, it's one of the most profitable mines in Canada. So I would not discard new discoveries that could happen in the break, which are different style, although very profitable, and maybe are going to be open pit.
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't want to interrupt more.
Yeah, that last cycle, we saw a handful of those very large open pit mines. It showed that the model works, and that those mines can be operated economically here and profitably here in Ontario and Quebec. So thank you for that. And I'm sure this belt will host a number of underground and surface deposits, open pit deposits. And sort of along those lines then, and we are running a little bit low on time, but for Richard and for Quentin, the question from the audience is, what's the long-term plan? i.e., is it acquisition by a senior producer? Question mark. And I'll add, or are you going to put these, your deposits into production? Maybe Quentin, you're a little bit further along in terms of your development. I'll turn it over to you to answer that first. But what's the goal of Red Pine? What is it that you're looking to do in terms of what you have, the gold deposits you have in the ground?
Right. I think our story's a little simpler maybe than where Richard is at the moment, because we had such a complex corporate structure. Once we solve that, the story's become much simpler for us. And we've never really had the type of funding, as Jose mentioned, to actually take, an aggressive stance on an exploration program on this property. So I think our first objective is to do that. We're going to sit down for 6 to 12 months and drill and put out results before we sort of make decisions on what the future will look like. We have a few things to prove to ourselves in the market, and I think they're simple in our case. Does our model match what they're seeing at the other places? Do we see increased grade with depth? Do we see continued mineralization with depth? I mean, we only looked at 300 meters. So to your answer, I think you always look at going into production. I mean, that has to be the model we're moving forward to, and that's what drives exploration for us. If you look at our board of directors, there's a number of producers, past produce, specialists that are on our board, and we're always in the forethought is we're drilling with the idea that this will see production one day. So I think that's the fair answer to that for us.
Richard?
Yeah, I think we've got a really talented team of technical people. I think we do have a fair amount of expertise when it comes to mineral exploration. And what we've done, like myself personally, in a previous iteration, is give our shareholders that leverage to exploration success. Through the discovery phase, resource estimation phase, and even pre-feasibility, converting some resources to reserves. But ultimately, as of now, the answer is the Manitou Gold is an exploration company. Once we get a resource/reserve in place with a fair value on it, we would look to enter into a process to bring in a group with mining expertise.
Excellent. And I think on that note, we'll end with you, Scott, because I'm going to say you've invested in both those companies. And if you don't mind sharing, what's your plan? Maybe you can elaborate on those investments made into Quentin's Red Pine and Richard Manitou.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're very focused right now on our property, our new 15,000 hectare consolidated property. But at the same time, we're invested in Red Pine and Manitou because we see the upside potential. Looking at the crustal scale controls on mineralization, the large property positions, the exploration upside that Manitou and Red Pine are already seeing. Getting those strategic investments in place, allow us to have that upside exposure across the belt, as both companies are successful moving forward.
Excellent. And as an investment banker and investor in those companies, I also like to hear that, because you've got your toehold in those companies, and should someone come along and want to take them out, they're going to have to pay a premium, because you guys have the edge with your investment in both. And so I believe that we're just about out of time. I'm looking to see if there were any more questions from the audience. Andrew, if there are, just let me know, because I can't see beyond this last one that I've got here. But I do want to thank all of the panel guests today for their time. And I want to emphasize that you've got a lot of experience, a lot of brain trust on this panel here today. And I think it's become very, very clear to everyone who's just witnessed this panel here today that the Michipicoten Belt Greenstone Belt has an awful lot of upside. The focus now is gold. There will be Alamos has already proven that it's got a lot of upside potential. They've realized on that potential in terms of moving the needle on the resource and reserves from the point of acquisition to today, and they've just done a tremendous job at that. And then you've got two exploration companies that flank them. One of them is a little bit further along in terms of development with Red Pine. They're moving the needle on their exploration. You heard from Quentin today. They're going to continue to explore. It's just drill, 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 and prove up more ounces. And Manitou on the east of Alamos in very prospective ground. They're going to continue with their drill exploration program. And as we heard from Jose of O3 from Osisko, and their investment in Richard, they believe very, very strongly that there's a discovery to be made there, maybe multiple discoveries. And so I thank you all for being on the panel today, and thank you all for your time.